Imagine you're 25 or 30. You've got startup equity. You're on H-1B visa, a mild caffeine addiction, and you're sitting in a lawyer's office being asked, do you want your kids to fight over your money in court, or do you want to set up a trust fund? Well, in today's episode, we're going to be breaking down what the heck is a trust fund, why more tech employees and founders are setting them up, how immigrants, yes, even those on visas, are using them, and how you might be able to save millions and millions of dollars in taxes by thinking like a billionaire without actually being one. Hi there and welcome to Americonomics, a channel where I, Akash Bhatt, share content to help everyday C with a visa, dream, and limited context understand the economics of life, ambition, and identity here in the United States. And I'm extremely thrilled to share that we are now part of the 01 network. Now, can anybody do it? Well, the short answer is yes. And the long answer is also yes. And here's how you can do so. Whether you're on a visa, green card, or already a citizen, the IRS really doesn't care about your passport or your visa status. All they care about is where your assets live. If you hold startup equity in a US company or cash in a US bank, you can put it into a US trust, no matter what your nationality is. In fact, more Indian, Chinese, and Israeli founders and tech employees are setting up Delaware trusts for US-based investments. You may ask me why? Because estate taxes don't wait until you are a citizen. And planning early means avoiding double taxation in this country, United States, and in your home country. Now, let's talk about what's going to happen in 2026. There's something that's coming that everybody needs to be aware of, because everything I just told you is going to change. In 2026, the current $13.6 million of estate tax exemption is getting chopped in half, likely to go down to just about $7 million, which basically means millions more Americans will owe estate tax, especially in places like the Bay Area, where $7 million doesn't even get you a decent fixer-upper. And that's why estate lawyers in San Francisco, New York, Austin are getting booked months in advance. And the trust boom is absolutely real. And if you wait too long, you could miss your window. Now, you might just be thinking, hey, I'm just an engineer. I'm not Elon Musk. Why should I think about it? Well, you weren't really a big fan of ChatGPT until you really wrote that first script that changed your life. The point that I'm trying to make is that you don't really have to be ultra rich to think smart. Everybody can think smart, especially early on in their careers. Now, if you've got 1 million plus in equity or real estate, a trust fund could be a great move for you. Let's kick things off. The first step in this process isn't legal. It's actually strategic. You need to ask yourself, what am I actually building this trust fund for? What am I trying to protect? Once your objectives are clear, everything else just becomes a matter of execution. So now let's talk about picking the right type of trust fund for yourself. There are dozens of trust funds and types of trust funds out there, and many of them actually sound like a legal spell in terms of the terminologies and the nomenclature. But in reality, most tech founders and employees only need to know a few. The first one is Grant Retained Annuity Trust, or GRAT. This is perfect if you have early stage equity in a startup that you expect to grow rapidly in the next few years. A GRAT allows you to freeze the value of your equity now and let that appreciation happen outside your taxable estate. It's like sending your equity into a time machine that also acts like a tax shelter. Second is the irrevocable trust. This is much more locked down structure. Once you move your assets into it, you can no longer legally control them. But the trade-off is that it is strong asset protection and serious estate tax savings. This is a popular choice for startup employees whose equities have already vested and is starting to get incredibly valuable. Third is the Spousal Lifetime Access Trust, or SLAT. This is designed for married couples where one spouse transfers assets into a trust that benefits the other, giving your family access to money while keeping it out of your estate for tax purposes. It's kind of a financial two-step: tax protection with family access. Finally, there's the Revocable Living Trust. This one won't help you save taxes, but it does help you avoid probate and ensure your assets are transferred smoothly to the right people if something happens to you. But before you do that, who are the most important people in actually doing so? There are 3 key people that you should involve. First is your estate planning lawyer. Ideally, this is someone who has worked with tech clients before. And you got to ask them directly, have you worked with RSUs, safe notes, and equity transfers? Second, you need a CPA or a tax advisor. Now, their job will basically be to model your tax exposure and make sure that your trust setup won't trigger unexpected liabilities. They'll help you understand the downstream effects of transferring assets and filing gift tax returns if needed. And third and most importantly, if you're still at a private company or planning to move equity into a trust, you may want to involve your corporate counsel or startup lawyer. So how do you then start moving assets efficiently? This is not just as simple as when moving your shares into a trust account. I wish it was that simple. The process actually involves few technical but manageable steps. You got to start by getting a current valuation of your shares. So if you're a private company, this usually means getting a 409A valuation or a fair market value FMV appraisal. You can do this on Kata. This really matters because you want to document the gift value of the trust at the time of the transfer, and you want it to be as low as possible so you can shelter future growth. Next, work with your estate lawyer to draft the actual paperwork that legally transfers the assets, whether it's RSUs, options, or even cash, into the fund. This can involve assignment forms, trust fund statements, and legal approvals. If you're transferring equity in a private company, you'll likely need to notify the company's legal team or get approval from the board, as I previously mentioned. And most startups usually allow this kind of transfer as long as it's structured cleanly and doesn't violate any transfer restrictions. And once all of this is approved, you'll want to open accounts in the name of the trust. This usually includes a brokerage account to hold any shares or stock that is being moved, and possibly a separate bank account for any income or distributions the trust is going to generate. Finally, you will end up funding the trust. That could mean wiring cash, transferring shares, or retitling ownership in the name of the trust entity. So what are the most common mistakes that people do when they're trying to set up a fund? The first mistake I've seen people do is they wait way too long to even think about starting a trust. If you fund a trust after your equity has already appreciated or after your company IPOs, you've missed a window. The second mistake is hiring a generic estate planner. Setting up a trust for startup equity is not the same as planning for a vacation home. You need somebody who really understands how cap tables, RSUs, and stock options work. And the third mistake is forgetting about liquidity. Trusts are great for sheltering long-term value, but they still need to have some liquidity, either for paying taxes, making distributions, or covering basic expenses. Now, if you fund your trust with nothing but illiquid pre-IPO stock, it could possibly become a financial dead end. Being in tech means that you're playing a high-stakes game with equity, taxes, and, most importantly, the uncertainty. But these trust funds aren't magic. They are actually a great strategy. The same way you optimize code, you can optimize your personal wealth as well. Now, whether you're on a visa, just landed your Series A or B funding, or working on a pre-IPO rocket ship, trust funds aren't just for the 1%. They are for the prepared. So if I were you, I would start talking to an estate lawyer immediately. Run the numbers, build a trust fund if it makes sense. Because in this game, it's not really about what you earn, it's about what you keep, and most importantly, who you leave it for. Thanks for watching this video, and in the next video, we'll break down how you can do so more tactically. So make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of our future episode releases. I'll see you in the next one.